Hello everyone, and as requested, you can see right here, I am back with some more GCSE/A-level OCR and AQI history help. And in this video, I am doing how to answer the 20 mark of the Y200 series, specifically the Y219 one. However, the actual plan for the essay at the start of this video, at least for the first third of it, can apply to any of the units in the Y219-01, Y200-01 series of your OCR topic, which is, of course, this is the 1 hour paper. This has only got your 10 and your 20 marker. The easiest by far is definitely for me in my level, Y219 1 hour paper. And they're just looking for those 30 marks. So let's get straight into how you do the 20 marker. Of course, if you want to see all my other previous ones or the 10 marker or whatever you want to find, all this has already been made and you find it on my playlist section on my channel. So we'll continue. So here we are. So generally, this is how you answer the Y219 or generally the Y200 Unit 1. So first of all, the basic structure. Now, you can go two ways about this. The way I did it in my exam and the way I would recommend it is intro, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, conclusion, not a third paragraph. And my reason for this is I think at the end of the day, as you can see in the next point here, of course, the first paragraph, you are basically just agreeing or disagreeing with the question. And second paragraph, you are then doing the alternatives. So if you agree, you disagree. If you disagree, now agree. Which at this level where you don't need synthesis like doing the Y300 or 1 units, it's totally fine and it's only 20 marks, not like 25 or 30. So you can definitely get away with doing that. So that's just a general breakdown. But quite frankly, if you do 58 paragraphs or even if you do 2, it doesn't really matter. So you've got that basic sandwich structure, intro, paragraph 1, 2, conclusion. Examiner's fine. It's more about what's coming next, which is the main bit, which is of course how to actually structure them. Now I definitely go with the P-E-E-E-L. So peel, slightly longer version of the English teacher probably gave you. That is point and establishing your main line of argument, what you're actually going to say in your paragraph, what you're going to say. You're going to say this is the most important factor. Evidence, so of course, after you bring in your own knowledge, that you say, well, therefore it's supported by this statement. Stalin put over 3 to 2 million people in the Gulag, therefore we can get back to that. Or the fact when lending consolidated power, he quickly established that all women and all national minorities were equal, increasing his support, etc., etc. Explain, so therefore using this, Stalin clearly had more of a control over the USSR because there were less people to oppose him, or therefore Tsar II gained more unpopularity because he had shot over 100 unarmed protesters, proving that he was determined to put down any form of constitutional or liberal opposition to him, and he wanted to maintain autocratic power as backed up by the 1906 fundamental laws. And then evaluation, so therefore that is simply just going against what you say, and as you can see later, this is really important. I cannot stress this enough. You need to evaluate. If you don't do it, you won't get any higher than about 13 marks of 20. So evaluate though, so i.e., on one hand, Varney II definitely did have opposition to his reign. However, the October manifesto highlights that he was willing to make some concessions, pleasing some liberals. And finally, of course, your link referring back to the question. Therefore, this clearly shows that the consolidation of power was this. So point, evidence, explain, evaluate, link back to the question. A little two things I've starred here, things you really need to make sure you do in your Y200 unit essay, 20 marker. Always conclude. If you're running out of time, you do need to conclude. Is what the examiner is looking for. Because at the end of the day, the examiner is making sure you can answer a question. If you're not concluding, and if you're not saying what you truly believe or tying it up in a nice bow, it's, well, like, if you don't tie something up in a bow, it's just kind of spread out, it's all on the floor. The examiner can say, well, there's a lot of evidence here, there's a lot of good knowledge, even evaluated even, but where are they going? What do they want? That's why you need to conclude. And again, if you don't have the conclusion, you're probably at max limited to about 14 or 15 marks out of 20, so not a bad answer, but of course we want that full marks, don't we? Lock in. And also always evaluate, like I've already said, if you don't evaluate, it's A-level, you need to evaluate, end of, for any subject really. And then A-star material, this is my personal thing, I've copyrighted, by the way, it's called SEC. Significance, evaluation, coherency. If you do this, you will get an A-star. Evaluation already explained. Significance, that's simply only talk about things that are relevant to the question and how they're important. Evaluation, of course, weighing up your argument, and then coherency, keeping a sustained line of arguments and consistently throughout your entire essay. Even in your contradictory paragraph, although some students want to go, oh, but I've got to, but because in paragraph 1 I've agreed with the question, paragraph 2 I have to completely disagree with the question. That is not the case, and in any ways, that's probably a bad thing to do. You have to, obviously, if you have to evaluate and disagree with the question, I'm not saying don't do that. What I am saying is that after you have evaluated and said, oh, but this go against this, but then at the same time, the viable manifesto, the fact that Tsar II quickly shot or imprisoned its persecutors in Finland, still clearly shows that my main line of argument is correct, that he was therefore very oppressive to his people. 30 marker. I recommend, if you are doing it, get your unit book, and also purchase this by Nicholas Fellows, How to Get an A in A-Level History. Two very, very good books. So here we are. It's a 20 marker on Joseph Stalin. Specifically, the growth of the police state was the most important reason why Stalin was able to consolidate his power. So, of course, it's all quite small on the camera. I'll read it to you. But yes, effectively, this is quite a relatively high-scoring answer. I'll show you another example in a minute, which is from the examiner's report. But straight away, when thinking of that, a police state, of course, we need to talk about the police state, so NKVD, the gulags, the show trials, but also appearing as Lenin's true successor, a strong communist leader, good consolidation of power, propaganda, terror and fear. These are also key things you need to note in the essay. So, ultimately, the growth and control of the police state was the most important reason why Stalin was able to consolidate his power and supreme influence over the Soviet Union. It proved most significant as it enforced his ideology, eliminated opposition, and ensured he was the only possible true successor of Lenin. Following Lenin's death in 1924, Stalin wasn't necessarily in a secure position and was equally a lot of potential rivals to his power. As a result, he implemented show trials, effectively staged broadcast trials where the accused would publicly admit crimes on fear of death. The growth of terror and police state held his consolidation of power as it made others in the party or USSR seem corrupt, and only Stalin as a true trusted successor for Lenin. Similarly, Stalin played on a police state to wipe out possible opposition with the secret police NKVD, KGB, sent any possible socio-political enemies to the gulags. Seemingly, he had 20 million in the gulags during his time in power, so using a specific figure there, that's useful for the explaining of the police state to why Stalin was able to consolidate his power, since the constant pressure among the public to obey stopped any widespread challenge to his authority. So clearly the main line of development is there. And then, of course, when we bring some of that evaluation in, however, only terror and police state alone wasn't enough to consolidate Stalin's power or importantly increase his support. That instead was achieved via a vibrant cult of personality. Of course, cult of personality propaganda, Lenin's successor links in very well there when we talk about Stalin, so make sure you include that if it relates to the question. His support that instead was achieved via a vibrant cult of personality. Stalin's training of himself enforced by strict propaganda to raise his public image. In 1924-1925, to illustrate his profile, Stalin edited himself onto lots of Lenin's old photographs and used megalomania, like renaming Tsarist to Stalingrad or building a large statue of himself to consolidate his image and power, to make him appear as the only real successor of Lenin. Similarly, Stalin effectively used propaganda to create a cult of personality by creating megalomania, large statues of himself, I've already said that bit, and to Stalingrad, and having education systems which frequently showed anti-fascist films and cartoons or posters to ensure a loyal population. Although it was still a method to raise support for him, he effectively was allowed power by a police state. In summary, while propaganda may have raised support that can't be forgotten, it was the growth of power, terror and control of a police state that secured Stalin's consolidation of power, as elements like purges and secret police ensured no opposition to Stalin's authority, that he held all the authority within the USSR. So that's a little 20 marker. I didn't read it all. I read sort of the intro paragraph 1, I skipped the second, and then third paragraph, evaluation paragraph, and the conclusion. I will now show you an examiner's report on an essay and how they would want you to structure one. So here we are then. This is now a little examiner's report that I will show you. So this is from 2023, and this one is about assessing the reasons for Stalin's rise to power between 1924 and 1929, so a very similar question we gave you. Look at exams reports, they're very detailed, not only because they show what they want you to see in an essay, but also they specifically tell you the patterns of students' answers and what they want you to get the highest amount of marks possible. The purpose of this question was for candidates to identify reasons Stalin's rise to power and provide supporting knowledge and analysis to assess which reason was the most important. That's what they're looking for. Most candidates were able to provide several reasons, including the miscalculations of Stalin's opponents, his role as general secretary of the party, his political skills and good fortune that came his way from chance events such as Lenin's death. Differentiating factors which distinguished the more accomplished scripts, so now tell about what they really want you to see, was the quality of the knowledge and therefore the quality of the analysis, and whether responses kept within the time frame of the question. Again, all link back to significance, evaluation, coherency. Think about that in your exam, even like set down the slide if you really want to. Time frame of the question. Some candidates went back to events and circumstances before 1924, and others went beyond 1929, end up analysing the reason for Stalin's consolidation power in the 1930s. So, for example, if you talk about the Kirov's death or murder here, this would not be relevant. Quite a tricky question, actually.
And then to achieve the highest level, it's necessary to provide a judgment, at least in the concluding paragraph. Yes, highest levels, judgment, conclusion, paragraph. You need them, as shown in exemplar 2. So exemplar 2, this answer, as you can see here, it scored 17, which is an A-star level answer, 85%. So that's your conclusion looking at here. Exemplar 2 demonstrates a good attempt to provide a judgment in concluding paragraph. In the response to question 2b was given level 6, 17 marks. So they said, in conclusion, it would agree that the main reason Stalin's rise to power between 924 and 929 was the structure of the party. The factor that was most significant is removing opposition as the new economic policy caused divisions, which the decree on functionalism, sorry if I can't quite read this correctly, was used to exploit these divisions. Therefore, we can see the structure was more important than the weaknesses of opposition. Stalin's rise, who guided by opposition as he was able to use them to grow support and remove naive opposition. However, these removes were down with the degree in party units or were switching from right to left, due in part to the opposition as General Secretary, as he could stay in the middle. Of course, General Secretary Stalin appointed people in his role. They could effectively make people and ensure people were kept low and heels in the party. Easier for him to consolidate his power. Could have talked that about the one I just showed you, Stalin's General Secretary. New economic divisions, moreover, it could be argued. So again, it could be argued, moreover, those key terms there for evaluation. Need to centralise the party, a structured support, political herd secretary. Therefore, the main reason Stalin's rise to power was the structure of the Communist Party, finished with the main line of argument. So that's what we're looking for.
So there we are, and that is how you answer your 20 marker for Russia. Again, any questions, please do let me know. Remember, following this pattern, for any of the Y200 units, you'll be absolutely fine. And let's look at the Russia 1894 to 1941, Nicholas II to Operation Barbarossa section. So any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.